Welcome to Bible Study with Fred. You can read comments I've written actually on blogger.com. But I'm going to start here with Genesis 30:25 to 43 from the King James Version and make a couple of comments, brief comments, and then it's a long passage, so we're going to cut it in pieces a little bit. So if you get your Bible and get on Genesis 30:25. It came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said unto Laban, Send me away that I may go into mine own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, Appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, Thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased into a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed me, has blessed thee since my coming. And now when I shall provide for mine house also? And he said, What shall I give thee? And Jacob said, Thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come from my hire before thy face. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. And Laban said, Behold, I would it might be according to thy word. And he removed that day the he goats that were ring straked and spotted, and all the she goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and peeled white strakes in them, made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters and the watering troughs, and the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring straked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring straight, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not into Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. When the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and maidservants, and manservants, and camels, and asses. Now Jacob wants to take his family and leave Laban, returning to his own country. Laban acknowledges that Jacob had been a wise steward of Laban's flocks, and has made Laban prosperous. He says, Tell me what you want, and I'll pay you. Jacob reinforces that under his direction and by his work, God has blessed Laban through Jacob, which is what Laban admitted. Now it is time for Jacob to acquire wealth of his own. It's interesting to note in the history how the Jew living in the countries of the Gentiles has made Gentiles rich and prosperous by their skills of handling money and commerce. It's also interesting how, like Laban, the Gentiles have more often than not resented the Jews rather than thanked them, as we'll soon see of Laban. We don't learn until the next chapter that God has arranged for this method of Jacob acquiring wealth, and it is not some arcane and ancient form of sheep herding. It is pointless to try to explain the events regarding the sheep without believing in God's miraculous involvement in Jacob's life. Now, chapter 31:1. And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's had he gotten all his glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return to the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field and to his flock. And he said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the God of my father hath been with me. And ye know that with all my power I have served your father. And your father hath deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, the ring strake shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring strake. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring strake, speckled and grizzled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes and see. All the rams which sleep upon the cattle are ring strake, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, which thou anointest a pillar, and there thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee from out from this land, and return into the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion of inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from them from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Excuse me. Jacob's cousins, Laban's sons, are envious of Jacob's success. Laban is himself showing signs of being hostile to Jacob from his own envy. Many a commissioned salesperson can relate a story of a manager who resented their success even though the salesperson was making the manager money. It's one of those strange things about business where a boss can resent an employee's success even when that success puts money in his own pocket. I've witnessed it myself at small single lot mobile modular home dealership in the late 1980s. God told Jacob to go home to where he was from and that God would be with him. Jacob called Rachel and Leah together and reminded them about how their father had changed his wages so many times, and yet God had made Jacob successful and blessed him with wealth. He told them how God had appeared to him and said that he had seen how Laban had treated him and told Jacob to go back from where he came. God reminded Jacob that he was the God of Bethel, where Jacob had the dream of the ladder to heaven. More importantly, Jacob understood that God was responsible for the condition of the sheep and was behind what happened. The Bible teaches us that God often uses people and methods to express his will, which go beyond natural explanations, but involve natural means. It is an important aspect of God's will, using human agency while being responsible for the effort himself. For instance, in Exodus 17, Israel is victorious if Moses' hands are held up, and they begin to lose if his hands are lowered. So his arms are held up by rocks to keep them up. But we know that it was God who gave the victory. Why not just have them win without Moses even being there? Simply because the action invested authority in God's man and God working with human efforts that would be impotent without him. God moves his will forward. Neither Jacob putting sticks in water troughs nor Moses holding up his hands have any power to accomplish anything without God's direct will being involved. This teaches us not to wait for a miracle passively, but to pray and get busy, praying that God will work through you if what you want to do is his will. This doesn't mean you shouldn't wait for God's direction, revealing his direct and perfect will and inspiration, giving understanding. But it shows that God may use your efforts, no matter how weak and irrelevant they may seem, to accomplish his purpose. The treatment the doctor applies to your sickness heals you, but the Bible teaches that it is God who does the healing, only often as not through human agency and effort. A family hurt is soothed because you went and apologized to a family member. And though God did the soothing, he used your willingness to act favorably in the matter to accomplish the calming. Understand, though, that the doctor's effort without God's will, or your words of regret, would have no effect without God. Don't make the mistake of assuming that it was all you or the doctor's great skill alone. And although God can heal without a doctor and can level out family difficulties without your apology, he more often than not will use them both to perform his will. Rachel and Leah both agree that Laban, their father, had not been exactly upright in his dealings. He had taken their money by cheating their husband. The wealth that Jacob had gotten from Laban was theirs and their children's. In the end, they were willing for Jacob to do whatever God led him to do. Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. So we'll stop there and begin again next time. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.